Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Lead Stories podcast, where we believe that everyone has influence.
You did it. Sorry.
What did I do?
You did it great.
Oh my
I'm so
gosh.
surprised.
Oh my gosh, that's so ridiculous.
But those who are intentional with their influence, and those who are intentional with their influence are leaders. I'm Pastor Steph.
I'm Jo Saxton, and I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. We're getting it together.
What is it? Is it the fall? We've been doing this for months. This is not a new.
I don't know.
This is not a new intro.
I don't know, but you have had a rough go, and so I was a little surprised by how great it went, and then I threw it off.
Yeah.
All right.
Awkward.
Awkward.
Anyway,
welcome back, everybody. We're continuing on our conversation.
What got you here will not get you there.
And if you haven't listened to the other two that we just did before this, you could stay listening to this one, but do go back.
Yeah, do go back.
And check those out, because the first one was kind of an introduction to the idea. But the idea basically is that the things that we've done to get to where we're at in our life, in our leadership, in different aspects, are often not the same things that get us to the next place we know we're supposed to be, or we're beginning to discern we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know how to name where there is. Sometimes it's just a sense even, because it's not always a destination as much as a growth or something like that. But yeah, if you're resonating with that, we're trying to figure out some different ways to not just say, wow, that's something that seems like a good thing to ponder, but also say, let's dig into it.
Yeah, because I think it's essential for whatever stage of leadership we're at, whether we are starting out and we're aspiring leaders, whether we are in the early stages emerging into leadership, or whether we're established leaders too. This is true for every single one of us.
Yeah, it really is. So last week we talked about plateaus and comfort zones, and this week we're going to talk about blind spots. What did you say earlier?
Well, I was going to say it again. I do think this topic is hard because you can't see them. I do.
Blind spots are hard because you can't see them, Jo Saxton. Tweet it.
I mean, you don't have to do that because that would be embarrassing. But I think I guess the topic does what it says on the label. And the hard thing, I think even doing this as a topic, I find hard because I know we're missing things.
Right. We're missing things. We've got blind spots.
We bring our own blind spots to this podcast. Mm-hmm. So even as we say these things, you guys will be thinking, well, there's this, that, and the other. And you'll be right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think for me it's and maybe it's just my love for knowing things, and my love and my need and my insecurity of feeling like I need to know what I'm dealing with here.
Yep.
And it's hard to think that as you're hoping to grow as a leader, as you're hoping to develop in your leadership, that there are things that you just don't even see that fundamentally impact. Or that you don't see, or you're not aware of. You're not aware of the implications of.
Yep.
Some of the things is that you're blind to the implications of this.
Yeah.
You might
know
see
that it's going on, but
you're blind to what this does for you 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line. You're not aware.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, this episode is calling for a deeper and greater and more intentional and proactive self-awareness.
So we're going to talk through some of the blind spots that came to us, and then I actually have an idea for a tool for people at the end also.
You know, Steph, she likes a tool.
I like tools. I do. So let's start with maybe what many people would suggest, and I think I would agree with the most important blind spot that we often have, which is blind spots of kind of fault lines in our character.
Yes. And blind spots of the implications of those fault lines.
Yeah. Those parts of our lives that we don't realize that we're in. We don't realize that we've got a struggle that we're dealing with. We don't realize how severe we've gotten in our impatience with people. We don't realize what the implications are of those things, of that pride, of that believing that I can get away with what's going on, believing that it won't happen to me, whatever it is.
I think it can be something as simple as the need to please.
Yeah.
And at first, it doesn't have a big thing on your leadership.
Right.
It
feels good to please people.
It feels good to please people.
Yeah.
But you do that for 10 years where you are always the last to leave work because you're trying to keep somebody else happy. 10 years of not using the word no because you're trying to keep someone happy. 10 years of shrinking down your vision and your dreams and your ideas because you are nervous about how that person's going to feel about your growth.
Yeah.
Implications.
Yeah. So
implications.
I think nearly everyone can think of a time where the lack of character for a leader has caused devastating effects, either for you personally or somebody that you know and love. And it is tempting to think that won't happen to me. I won't be that
Yeah.
leader that has that kind
Well,
of
because
fallout.
we have limited those things to money, sex, and power as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which you know, pay attention to that.
They're things that, I
Right.
mean, for sure. But we haven't thought, and because we've seen the devastating impact of the abuses of those areas, and we'll even come back to money a bit later on. But it's the weeds, it's the little weeds that grow up. That it's the kind of the fluff of the dandelion that we're not really thinking about as well.
And because that's not usually how it happens. People don't just decide I'm going to ruin my life and everyone around me tomorrow.
Yeah.
There was a lot of little decisions that got
Yeah.
there.
And I think we haven't always, we have not prized, but there are certain things we respect as if engaged with unhealthily, they have a dangerous impact.
Yeah.
We have not done that about how we spend our time.
Yeah.
We have not thought about what it means for a leader to have an integrated life and that be a character issue, not just a nice organizational pithy phrase.
Yeah. And so in some ways also with the idea of like what got you here won't get you there. Sometimes the things that were a little weak in our character, we still got here.
Yeah.
But if we don't attend to that, we're not going to get there.
Yeah. Or they'll take you to a very different there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They take us to a very different there.
And increased success, increased authority and influence, all that stuff creates the need for a stronger character.
You know, I remember hearing a leader say to me once, he goes, you know, the things that you leave in the early years, when you grow, the gaps just get bigger too. And the thing is, I think there have been times when I've thought, well, when I grow, it's a sign I've conquered them or I don't have to worry them. No, actually, the insecurity, the gap that left has just enlarged in the space.
Right, yeah. I think Carrie Newhoff
yeah.
recently said in a blog or something like that, character is the most important thing that you'll never get paid for.
Golly.
You'll never get paid to work on.
Yeah.
You get paid to work on a lot of stuff, but your character is not something you'll ever get paid for, but it's most likely what you're gonna get fired for.
And can we say that's true of, yes, again, like you're a pastor, I've pastored before. Yes, this is true of church spaces. It's true of everywhere. Everywhere you're working.
In fact,
whether you're a person of faith,
you.
whether you're not a person of faith.
Yeah.
This is for us all.
Yep.
All of us.
Yeah.
All of us.
Feels really important.
Yeah.
So that's the first blind spot. The next blind spot that we were thinking about was just the habits that we've gotten into.
Yeah.
That maybe even they're not necessarily bad habits, but if they don't change, we're not going to get to where we need to go.
Yeah, and you know, some of these character things we were talking about began with little habits, but I was thinking of a quote by Annie Dillard, and it was basically that how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives.
Yeah.
Do you know? And then she goes on to say, what we do with this hour and that one is what we're doing. And I thought, and it's in the context of other things, she's talking about schedule and stuff like that, but I'm always sobered by that how we spend our days is how we spend our life.
Yeah. It's
So
actually the little things, the everyday moments.
Yeah. If you want to know who you are, observe a day in the life of.
Yeah. It reminds me of a quote that I saw on somebody's like inspirational meme. Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change the toilet paper roll.
Oh.
I thought it was funny, but I also think it's that like you don't want to actually have any sort of responsibility in these little ways. Somebody else should do this for me.
Yeah.
Someone else should take care of that. I'm above this.
Yeah.
I'm not that.
That's
I
so
don't need to
good.
do that. Somebody else needs to do that. But I want to be a world changer. I want to affect change. I want to be influential.
Yeah.
It's like, but then you're not. So how you're spending your day is about your character and your choices. And are you someone who has a habit of doing stuff that you see needing to be done, or going? It's a habit. It's a habit to overlook things that don't really matter to me, and I don't really care. Because those habits are the kinds of things that keep you from being a person who's got the habit of looking for what can be done, which in leadership situations is crucial.
It's really,
Maybe it isn't for toilet paper rolls, but it is in leadership. And where do you think you're practicing that? Where do you think you're practicing
where
that?
you practice? You know, I think just you saying that has reminded me that one of the things I realized again, even just yesterday, that I have to get over is my desire for a silver bullet for change.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That is probably one of my blind spots, because I don't always see that desire coming. Because I know it's not true in certain areas. You know, in various parts of my career, I've known that it's not a silver bullet, but that doesn't stop me wanting one.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop me from thinking, oh, if only I could just have this moment where I would suddenly decide to. I'd wake up and become the woman I wanted to be in this, that, and that area. And I thought, or you can start building new habits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can start attending to the old habits that aren't really helping you.
Yeah.
You can look at how you spend your day.
Yeah. We've referred to the book, The Power of Habit, before on this podcast.
Yeah,
It's a really good one for
the
this.
other, and Atomic Habits is the one I've been reading recently by James Clear. Both of them are excellent.
Great.
Both of them are excellent.
Okay, so then the next thing we have is, I think, often a very, it's tough to wake up to this blind spot, is what I want to say. And that is the unseen power dynamics in the room, on the team, in the organization. And this can be pretty contextual, but I think what we have to recognize is that because privilege and power exists, when we are in spaces, it's there. And so it doesn't help us to ignore it.
No.
Whether we're the person that has the power or the person that definitely doesn't, or somewhere in between, it doesn't help us to ignore that dynamic is going on.
You have
that
to be
dynamic
aware.
is happening. Yeah. So any thoughts about that, just how you would help people to pay attention to that?
Golly. I don't know, because I have to, this is a hard one. It's hard because we're sitting in a room recording right now. Those of you who will see us on YouTube can see part of it, which is surrounded by, which is a big table.
Yeah, it's a conference room.
And it's a conference room, so it's a big, I was going to say it's not a circle, or it's a rectangular table.
Yeah.
And so when you were talking about that, I was thinking about the whole idea, and partly because we talk about leadership, about having a place at the table, a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining the power dynamics at the table, and thinking the key dynamic is not, I've learned that it has mattered less about whether I had about who gets a seat at the table than it does who owns the table.
Yeah. Because the person who owns the table has control of whose voice gets to be spoken at the table and who gets to sit at it.
And if it's about who gets to sit at it, you're a guest.
Yeah, you're a guest.
You're a guest.
Sometimes people prefer the guest to be seen and not heard.
Yes.
Because it looks good to have a certain group at the table.
Yeah. And that's the welcome is to visit the table, not to own it.
Right. I feel this is important for people who need to recognize the power they do have. I think that I've had to wake up to this in certain scenarios for me. There's definitely rooms where I do not have the power. There's other spaces where I don't want it. I didn't ask for it, but because of my personality or my role or my title, when I come into the room, that power dynamic is there. Sometimes I've described it as like the gravitational pull of the room feels like it's coming towards me, and it's like things are coming at me, and which I'm actually like, when you think of, I was watching this video about outer space with my nephew and talking about the ways that different things are formed, and the gravitational pull, the biggest object pulls the other things
everything
towards
else
it.
in.
And if you as a leader, whether you have positional authority, relational authority, or both, don't recognize that, then that actually is damaging, right? Because you're not recognizing that people are colliding, maybe as they're coming towards you, in an unseen way, when it comes to wanting positions, to acquiescing to what you're saying and not actually questioning things or being willing to push back. I notice all the time, and I notice the times I'm not doing it right and not doing it well, and I'm thinking, oh man, I bet people didn't feel like they could share their opinion in that space, and that was on me.
Yeah. So what we're essentially saying then is, we're saying when we're thinking about what brought you here won't get you there, that one of the things that we need to be aware of is our blind spot to power dynamics in a room, or in our workspace, or in our context.
Right.
I think it's helpful because it may be why you're not getting a promotion.
It might be why you're not getting a promotion, and you're going, it's probably because the person next to me is just better. Like, or this organization is going to promote certain people for certain reasons, and that's never going to be you.
Or it may be worth, for those of us who do have the power, to say, why, you may be looking at your table thinking, why does everybody look like me? That's a real good question.
It's a really good question, and you might have power for that to be different.
Yeah.
It might mean that the other people are advocating for themselves and you're not.
Yeah.
And they're going in saying, hey, I want to look for better opportunities. What else can I do? And then can I get paid to do more? And you don't know if that conversation's going on. But what I'm saying is sometimes it's going on unseen, and the power dynamics are going down, and whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't help to be blind to them.
Yeah, it doesn't. And it doesn't.
That's the first step.
And I would say for those of us who are really uncomfortable, I know that for some of us, the idea of power feels kind of ugly, and
because it is.
And understandably so, and we've seen it. Avoiding its existence, avoiding the acknowledgement of its existence, does not make it go away.
Right. Right. It doesn't make it go away whether or not whether you're the person who needs to acknowledge you have so much power and
Yeah.
privilege, or you're the person who has to acknowledge that might be why in this space you're not
Yeah.
getting
Getting
opportunities
this far.
or getting mentored or
Mhm.
growing or feeling like you feel. Honestly, sometimes it's just like, why does it feel icky?
Yeah.
And why does it feel unsafe in the space? Why does it feel icky? Why
Golly.
does it feel like
Gosh.
something's happening? And I don't know what that is for your organization or your team or your space,
Mhm.
but start to wonder about that if you feel that a little bit, because
Yeah.
it's not going to be good to try to brush it under the rug.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean you're the one that has to get up on a table and call it out. I'm just saying it doesn't work to brush it under the rug.
No.
That will lead to something worse.
No. Yeah.
Because it's the same thing you said earlier. 10 years of brushing it under the rug.
Yep. Again, how we spend our days.
Yeah.
How we spend our days.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Money. And it just comes to me because as leaders, as human beings, that we can be funny about money
Really weird about
and
it.
avoid it, avoid checking it,
Avoid talking about it.
avoid talking about it, avoid talking about what we're earning, what we're not earning, avoid budgeting, reflecting on what we're spending, things like that. And, I remember, this was years ago. I spent in my college days. And England has a culture of gap years,
Oh yeah.
and like universities and colleges actually like you to take, not like a silly one, but an intentional gap year is often valued in a university application and stuff. And I remembered, this is dating me, but whatever. I was at the stage when there weren't college fees for tuition.
Oh yeah.
And I remember the debates and the eras of when it just began and when they were just beginning, and me thinking, what are the ramifications of this? Would I have taken a gap year? How I'd think about money would have to be different. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be able to kind of blithely just go into certain things because there were implications now. There were doors shut to me. Or I would have to reckon with ideas about debt. I would have had to think about things completely differently, and it was just a fleeting thought. But on one level, I think there are times when people feel we don't talk about money in our everyday lives. But I'm beginning to wonder if we don't talk about it enough.
Right.
And for us as leaders, and when we're in negotiations for our jobs and stuff, are you thinking about money?
Yeah.
And not. I remember talking to someone just the other day saying, when you're thinking about what you're getting paid, would you think of your kid and their shoes?
Right.
Rather than thinking of the embarrassment of asking for a raise.
Yeah.
Would you think of...
Or their college.
Or their college. Or your retirement.
Yeah.
Or the caregiving expenses for that relative.
Right.
As you live in the context of extended family. Mm-hmm. Will you think...
Or even the ability to get away a little bit.
Yeah.
To be sane.
And I'm not sure what this, in some ways, it's just the conviction of my heart that one of our blind spots is money.
Yeah.
And us working out what we do with our money, whether we're spending our money, whether we're saving our money. I'm no financial educator.
No.
At all. I'm certainly no financial advisor. But I think we need to pay attention to people who are calling us out on money, because otherwise our conversations about money are just dealing with lack and debt.
Yeah.
And if there are ways to avoid that and be proactively intentional about that now,
yeah.
There are issues. And also we know this is a live issue because of the pay gap, the gender pay gap, and the nuances of people of color within that pay gap.
Right.
And stuff. There are implications, and it's not on account of our ability. It's not on account of our skill set. It's on account of inequity.
Yeah. And some people, I think, an aspect of this that is hard for them. I know a lot of people who. Their family system didn't teach them a lot about this because because people don't talk about it, or because they didn't have a lot of money and their family was always just really paycheck to paycheck. But now you have a little bit of margin, and so you're almost like afraid to leverage that capital in ways that would be really healthy. So an example I often think about is when you get to a point where you recognize the dollar amount each of your working hours affords you, like you're X amount of dollars an hour to work, but you're so stressed to spend a little bit on a cleaning person once a month.
Oh gosh.
Who's going to do that work when the hours that they're getting paid is significantly less than you could get paid to work.
Yeah.
Or to pay for your sanity, to get some space, to come back to it's just one example. Yeah. Can everybody afford that? No, I know you can't. But when you can, I watch people with an unwillingness to do something that's going to be good for them because they don't want to leverage financial capital for the sake of time and energy, relational space, other things. There's almost this like grip to it, and I get it, and I know that we want to be wise, but it's like it doesn't make sense mathematically. Like X amount comes in, so then this much could go out, so then you're doing that work when you could be making this much money an hour. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And
I think it's good for us to be aware of the things that don't make sense.
Right.
Be like those of you who go to colleges and stuff, as you're choosing your colleges or choosing your postgrad
or master's degree,
master's degree and all that kind of stuff. Can you afford to pay this off?
Yeah. Do you really believe that there's going to be jobs out there that's going to pay you enough that you're going to be able to pay back how much money on those loans every single year?
And if the kind of job that if the kind of sphere of leadership and the career path you're going on, doesn't pay and you're good with that, what are the implications of where you go to college?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what are the implications of perhaps the next thing you need to learn doesn't need to be tuition driven? Yeah. There's spaces to
Are there
learn
other
things.
ways?
I mean, I've got a friend who has learned some significantly awesome business skills from like online B school that they found and said, okay, this costs a few $100s. And I now am able to increase how much I make per like gig by hundreds of dollars an hour. This is the ROI on this investment has been huge. Or investing in coaching. Putting yourself out there and saying, okay, I don't know exactly what I need to grow in, but believing that investment of time, money, energy will have a return on its investment that's different than a college degree or a master's degree, but perhaps the time and energy and money is going to have a way more realistic ROI.
It's worth considering, friends. It's and I think for those of us who are people of faith, yes, God works it out. It's not. Yes, He is our provider.
Right.
But let's not do that. I'm not going to engage with this and hope, because you'll still have a bill. Do you know what I mean? You'll still have a bill, and you still have the desires for these things, but you didn't do the work to get what you needed and stuff. And whether that, I'm not even saying that work might have just been saving.
Oh, sure.
That work might have been less Starbucks. Do you know what I mean? I'm not.
Right. And God might give you the green light to do something, and you really feel led to do it when you don't know how it's going to work out. I just don't think that should be the regular modus of operation. It should be make sure that that's what God's saying, and not just your ambition or not just your throwing in yet another fleece to see if God's going to do something. Just bring that into community at the very least.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's really
just
hard.
But I think it's amazing what I've seen us hold on to jobs we needed to let go of, positions because of money. I've seen us not have adventures that we could have had because of money. I've seen it, do you know what I mean? As leaders, I've seen us not take care of our bodies in a way because of money.
Right.
And it's like, wouldn't it be great if we could get ahead of that?
Totally.
Wouldn't it be good if we could do that on the front end, so that we were that it didn't determine all our other decisions?
Yeah, and I think then you mentioned this briefly too, but when it's appropriate to talk about how much money you're making, I don't think it's appropriate to tweet or to put on the internet or to tell all your friends. But are there scenarios where we need to be comparing the kinds of amounts we're getting paid to do things?
The compensation.
The compensation and what would be appropriate to ask for. Do you need to ask somebody when they say what's your lowest amount you're willing to get paid for a job? Are you checking with somebody else in that industry to make sure you're not lowballing yourself? Are you talking to other people about what you should be asking for as far as a stipend for things? Not everybody, but the right people. I mean, I've had this conversation with people I've mentored. I've said, like, are you willing to tell me how much you're getting paid at this job right now? And then if they do, I'm like, okay, well, this is what other people are getting paid in this way. So this is either really good, and so you need to not lose that job.
Before you dream of another job that's just as wonderful.
Or you need to recognize, but those kinds of conversations, and they're hard to have,
and
but they're really important.
They're awkward and they're vulnerable, but they are really important. And I think the reason why we see these stats and this pretty robust data on the economic gap in the US, but frankly everywhere. The reason why we see this gap, or at least one of the reasons, is we're not talking about this stuff.
Yep. All right, well, last but certainly not least,
yay!
Burnout. Burnout. We kind of put like the burnout and the tyranny of the urgent. Just this realized, like, tyranny is the worst word, but just that you're under this constant, like, I've got to complete these tasks because it's so urgent. And I think there's people who recognize they're coming into burnout, but for many, many people, it's a very unexpected How Does Carrie Newhoff Put It? The title of his book.
Didn't see it coming.
I didn't see it coming.
Great book, by the way, please.
Yeah,
Go get
actually it covers a lot of blind spots. So like you didn't see the burnout coming, and then I don't know, in my personal experience, it's been like, oh, how could I have not seen that? How did I not notice that my body was trying to tell me this?
Well, I think the way we do that is, it's the question I like to ask now. If your body could talk to you, what would it want to say?
Yeah.
And I think we need to ask ourselves that question regularly.
Yeah, because your body might be saying you're about to get derailed. Like,
Yeah.
we are heading towards nowhere fast. We are burning out. We are on fumes. There's a lot of things your body might try to say, but oftentimes we're not actually stopping and asking the question.
We're not. And I think I have been humbled again and again by the fallacy and the folly of thinking I'm invincible, or thinking I have to be.
Yeah.
You know, and it comes from my own brokenness. It comes from my own, all the tropes growing up of, you know, you have to be twice as good.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're growing up in the inner city as a black woman.
Yeah.
You've got to be twice as good at everything. And you keep on going and you keep on going not because you're trying to beat everybody else. You're trying not to be left behind.
You're trying to survive.
And you're trying to survive. However, it takes its toll. It takes its toll on your body. It takes its toll on your mind, your heart, your emotions. And whilst that's my story, I know there are many of us of different ethnicities, different socioeconomic groups have had a similar thing where we have overworked to survive.
Yeah.
And our bodies keep record.
Yeah.
They do. Or we are overworking because we're aspiring because of the money thing.
Yep.
Or we're overworking because of the character thing or the habit thing, or we're overworking because we are trying to put food on the table. We're trying to get to that level where somebody notices us, so we get promoted. Women have a classic habit, particularly of overworking to be noticed, rather than saying something to be noticed.
Right.
And what happens is people just think they're a great worker.
Yeah.
They're a worker bee, and they still don't get the rise or the promotion.
No.
And so I think we've got to stop and ask ourselves, because you have one body.
Right.
This is it. There are other jobs, but this is it on your body. And so if your body would speak to you, what would it tell you?
Yeah. Yep. And I think that when we were talking about the power dynamics earlier, you know, for you coming in, now you're an immigrant in America, that's a whole nother thing.
No, it's a whole other
So there's just so many dynamics. And I think actually for the people who have a lot of power, sometimes people use the phrase, for instance, toxic masculinity, talking about men. And what I've noticed in the men that I mentor and coach is that's bad for men.
Oh gosh,
It's bad for them.
If it's toxic, it's toxic.
The expectations that they're supposed to be this sort of powering over and powerful and not weak and always doing this and that. Now, sometimes it turns into passive, and that's not good either. And look, I think things should just come to me and I don't have to work for them. But I've also seen the other side where people are literally killing themselves. Hurting themselves because they think they need to be the savior of everything. They think they have to have it all together. They can't show weakness. They can't be sad.
That's a burden.
They can't be depressed.
That's a burden.
They can't open up. They can't rely on other people, especially women. It's like, this is bad for men. This is not just about this is bad for women.
Humanity, people.
It is.
Bad for humanity.
It is. And I think that there's that I'm invincible thing.
Yeah.
That maybe exists among white men more than any group because of how much privilege and power they have.
Wow.
And I think it's really detrimental. And we actually do need you guys to be healthy. We need this, the community. Yeah. And so just for guys out there who are feeling that, I just want to say, stop and pay attention to that. And it's okay to get help. It's okay for people. It's okay to acknowledge this is too much.
And also, it's really important.
Super important.
It's super important for the life you actually want.
Yeah.
You know, none of us signed up for burnout. None of us thought, oh, you know what I'd love to have to stare at a wall all day weeping.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I mean? With nothing left. I'd love to wake up more tired.
It's not funny, but
do you know what I mean? I'd like to wake up more tired than I was.
Staring at a wall weeping.
I mean, I'd like to rock myself gently in a corner because I'm utterly exhausted and not be able to be coherent with my children. That's what I signed up for. Do you know what I mean?
No, nobody does.
Nobody signs up for this. I want to have heartburn every day.
Nobody signs up for any of these things, like the fallout of your character or the habits that lead to nowhere or the money thing that you don't pay attention to and then you don't have what you need.
Exactly. And then you're trying to work out retirement and you're like, oh, so I'm not doing that then.
Nobody signs up for that stuff.
Yeah.
And this is why it's important to talk about the blind spots.
It really is.
So we have. Okay, so here's my tool idea, and then let's talk through the questions. So some of you maybe looked at the tool called the Johari Window. And the Johari Window is about looking at blind spots.
Yes.
And so you can Google it, look it up. But the idea is that it's like
show notes.
Show notes. Look it up. But it's like the idea is that it's like a 4-pane window.
Yeah.
And each of the 4 categories are So one category is what you know about yourself and everybody else knows because you're pretty transparent about it. Another pain is what you know about yourself but nobody else knows. We should pay attention to that. Then there's the what you don't know about yourself but other people definitely know. That's the blind spots. And then the fourth one is what you don't know about yourself yet and other people don't know yet either. And those are the most difficult blind spots to discover because there's not anybody that can help reflect those back to you. And so the goal is that more things are in the what you know about yourself and in a healthy way what other people, the right people, know about you. The different levels of vulnerability. So look that up, Johari Window. We'll put it in the show notes. And then let's do our process that we did actually last week, the same one.
Let's go for the top two.
Top two
blind spots, friends, of the ones that, we
had character, fault lines in your character, habits that are leading to nowhere. It's terrible. Unseen power dynamics.
Money.
Not talking about money, ignoring money, and then burnout and tyranny of the urgent. What are maybe just the top two that stuck out to you?
Good luck as you discover that top two. Because I'm looking and thinking, is it fair to ask the top two? But we have to.
You'll get overwhelmed by too many of them. And then the second thing is to take that into time of prayer and reflection. Kind of asking God if there's an invitation. That God
what's
has
the
for
invitation?
You.
And what's the invitation? And please note, with an invitation to greater awareness, that can be quite illuminating and so a little alarming.
Give yourself some space.
Yes, I think that's what I'm saying.
Light a candle.
That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking of David saying in Psalm 139, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me." I mean, that's quite a prayer. And leave me in the way everlasting. It's like, okay.
Pretty intense.
I remember, I think it was Delirious. They wrote a song based on that bit. Or was it from, anyway, and it was Investigate my heart and make me clean. Investigate. I might have been from Psalm 51.
That's a tiring thing. Emotionally.
But it's thorough.
It's thorough and it's important. So maybe don't do it right before you're supposed to give a presentation. But do it at a time when you have some reflection space. This, in my mind, is why personal retreats, if you can do them for a half day, maybe even overnight, can be really crucial because you've got the space to kind of fall apart a little bit and come back together. And
I've just realized this is quite a challenging series.
We said about every series that we've got.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I just thought it's just it's such hard work. This is heavy lifting.
It's really heavy.
It's heavy lifting. And maybe I feel this one more, maybe for some of you, last week's one on plateaus and comfort zones, you're like, oh, wake up, Joe, catch up. It was hard last week. That one wasn't as challenging to me as this one is. But because of the awareness, the grinding awareness, and it's like, actually, this is heavy. It's heavy lifting. This is. To acknowledge what got you here won't get you further is humbling in itself. Because you have worked very, very hard to get where you are. And we celebrate you and we honor you and we value you and we see you and we enjoy you. But we also know you want to get there. We also know you want to go further up in your companies. You want to start your own businesses. You want to
grow as a person.
You want to grow as a person. You want to be more healed and whole. You want to have healthier family dynamics. You want to build healthy family systems. We also know you want to plant churches, start non-profits, write books, all that kind of stuff. And the truth of the matter is, what brought you to this point isn't it's time for a skill change, a tool up, a leveling up to get to the next one.
And one more thing that we haven't mentioned is also that there is an enemy, I think, that's trying to derail us.
So I'm not saying that in a blasé way. I'm just like, actually, that's very true.
So just paying attention to that reality. So then finally, just what is one step for each of these two things? One thing you can do that's realistic, actionable. You could have somebody hold you accountable to. It's got to be very, very.
I would really encourage you to have someone to hold you accountable on these things. I think that'd be good.
Conversation partner. Maybe you could both be making some goals.
Well,
this has certainly been an interesting week.
On that note,
good luck finding the blind spots, everybody. No.
Oh my gosh. I was thinking, how can we end reflectively? And that's how we've ended.
We're the worst. Okay. We're the best and the worst. It's the worst. Sorry. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Maybe like a crazy person.
I never get to talk to you.